Now, let's take a bird's eye view of these functions. Okay, again, we have inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, sales, and customer service. We have procurement, technological infrastructure, human resources, and firm infrastructure. Okay? Now, what's important to realize is the functions going downwards, the vertical functions here, these are support functions. The core functions are going horizontal. These are the core functions that actually do the work, that actually develop, are involved with making a product and getting it into the market and generating sales. Okay, the support functions primarily support the core functions. Okay, now I want to add a perspective to all these functions. There's something called a value chain. The value chain is basically how all these functions come together. The value chain describes all the functions as a chain of events where at each link in the chain, value is added to the product or service in order that the customer at the end will perceive it as value. For example, suppose we want to sell a bag of peanuts, okay? But in order for us to sell a bag of peanuts, we have our finances all messed up, and the only way we can sell those peanuts at a profit is for $300 a bag. No one will see value in a bag of peanuts that costs $300. If we can sell that bag of peanuts for 25 cents, then someone will say, okay, I can either put a quarter in the parking meter, or I can enjoy a bag of peanuts. Enjoying a bag of peanuts is worth more to me than 25 cents. That's the clincher that will give us market share. That's the clincher that will position us to grow. The customer needs to see value. The target market needs to see value in our offer. Okay? So let's take a look at this. Again, we need to make sure that the end result is value to the customer. We need to make sure that we have a margin of value, that the customer will be able to, the customer will wind up with value by taking our product. Okay? So again, the first step in the first function is inbound logistics. Now, in the context of a value chain, this will be the first link in the chain. Okay? We need to make sure value is added, not detracted in inbound logistics. Next, operations. Again, we need to make sure value is added. We need to make sure it doesn't cost us too much to hire a chef to make the mushroom salad. Same thing with outbound logistics. Same thing with marketing and sales. And same thing with customer support. These core functions must add value, not subtract value. We have to make sure that as the product or service flows through this chain, this sequence, value is added to the customer. Okay? If everybody knows out there that we provide awesome customer support, they may say, look, I really don't want to purchase a flat screen TV right now. I really don't want to. But because this company is having a sale, even though I can probably find it for a couple of bucks cheaper in Costco, I know that they offer phenomenal customer support. That customer support provides value to the customer. And they'll say, look, even though I don't want to buy it now, because they're having a sale, I would like to buy it, not because the TV is worth the money they're charging, but because their company offers support. And I'll never get that support anywhere else. So that's value to the customer. These are the core functions. Excuse me. Same thing with the support functions. Information technology should add value. Procurement should add value. Human resources should add value. And firm infrastructure should add value. what we're going to be looking at is how our agency at each function level can add value to the finished product. Can add value, sorry, not to the finished product, can add value to the customer. The customer will perceive our offer as valuable. We need to make sure we have a margin of value. Now, the value chain is split up into different categories. There are 3 categories that the value chain is split up into, which is, this is really just a side note, okay? But the first 3 links in the chain of inbound logistics, operations, and outbound logistics are what's known as supply chain management. Okay, this is supply chain management. This managing managing the supply chain focuses on or consists of the first 3 functions. Outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and customer support is primarily the area that's known as customer relationship management. Again, there are a lot of, for supply chain management and customer relationship management, there are a lot of very sophisticated programs out there that that can do this, that can do this on a computer. But the bottom line is, this is the area of the value chain that supply chain management is focused on and customer relationship management is focused on. Now notice that they both overlap in outbound logistics. That's because the flow from the value chain, as it goes into outbound logistics, customer relationship management needs that outbound logistics, starts from the outbound logistics as well. So in other words, it takes whatever value was created in outbound logistics from supply chain management and then goes ahead and increases that value again in marketing and sales and customer support. Okay? Now, if customer support decreases in value, that's going to go all the way back to outbound logistics and affect the value that's added in outbound logistics. The third area of the value chain focuses on the support functions, and this is known as enterprise resource planning. These are the 3 areas of organizational management that the value chain is split up into. Okay? Let's take a look now at resources. Okay? Those are the functions of every agency. Every agency and every company has only 9 functions, and the goal of those functions is to add a value to the customer. Okay? The way those functions add value to the customer is by receiving the resources as inputs. Now, the functions themselves don't actually use those resources. The functions themselves take those resources and allocate them to the processes, which we'll cover afterwards. The functions themselves don't do anything. The functions themselves are an umbrella of processes that use those resources to create value. So let's take a look now. We know what functions are. Let's take a look at resources, and then we'll get into processes. Okay? Resources are the available inputs for functions. Okay? We have 4 categories of resources. We have physical resources. We have social resources. We have financial resources. And we have intellectual resources. Okay? Those are the only 4 resources that every agency has. Now let's take a look. Let's take a look at what those resources are. Okay? Physical resources. Physical resources would be things like a desk, a chair, a phone, a computer, paper, a pen, anything tangible. That's a physical resource. Those are the physical inputs that are available for the functions to go on and distribute them to the processes. Okay? Financial resources. Financial resources would be things like cash in the bank, or perhaps a line of credit, a financial sponsor, a loan. Those would be financial resources. Social resources. Social resource would be things like employees. It can be, right, that's people. It can be trust. People trust us. We have talent. We have a great community image. Those are all resources that we can use. Then we have intellectual resources. Intellectual resources would be, for our purpose, it'll be ideas that we have. Okay? Typically, intellectual resources would include patents. Okay? But for our purposes, let's assume that intellectual resources are employee intelligence, community insight. Those are the 4 resources, and a resource is the only thing anyone can use to create value. You need something. You need a starting point to create value. The resource is what it is. It can be financial, it can be social, it can be physical, and it can be intellectual. But it has to be something. That's the only thing that can create value. These resources pass through the functions and then are distributed to the processes. Now, guys, I want to ask you a question. I want to put up a poll. I personally have done a lot of research on this, and frankly, I haven't been able to come up with the answer. But how would you consider time? Is time a social resource? Is time a physical resource? Is time a financial resource? Intellectual resource? Okay. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, so I see like this. I see 30% vote that time is a physical resource. 20% voted that time is a social resource. And 30% voted time is a financial resource. It's very interesting. Again, I don't know. I really don't know the answer. And I've done a lot of research on it, and I haven't been able to come up with the answer. That's very interesting. Okay. Okay, now let's move on. Processes. What are processes? Processes are how the agency accomplishes their goals. There are 3 categories of processes. There are management processes, or I should say 3 tiers of processes. There are management processes, there are operational processes, and there are support processes. A management process is the process that develops the overall strategy and defines functions. Okay, they define the framework of the functions. Operational processes are the process that implement the outcomes of the management processes. And support processes are the processes that support the operational outcome, the outcomes of the operational processes. Okay, so again, 3 tiers: management process, operational process, support process. These processes are what take the resources out of the functions. Okay, this is the end destination for the resources. With that said, it's very important that these processes are created in an efficient structure. And we'll take a look at this. We'll take a look at this in just a minute. Let's first get a perspective on processes. Okay.